Hello, welcome or welcome back to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all the places you can find me should be linked in the description box below this video. Here on the channel you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting, spinning, crochet and weaving, all of the fibre related things. Today's video is my September making wrap up, so I'm going to be chatting about all of the things knitting and spinning that I worked on, that I made during the last few weeks. Before I get stuck into that, I will mention what I'm wearing. I'm so happy that it is feeling like the first day of sweater weather here in South Wales. I'm up in my craft attic as I usually am, and I do have the windows open because it's nice to keep the fresh air going, but that makes it just cool enough to wear a sweater. So I have on today my Funfetti jumper, which is a pattern by Sylvia Watts Cherry, and I test knit this for Sylvia, and it was originally published in Liner magazine at the beginning of this year, I think. I knit mine from some Wendy Ramsdale. Had to think then. It is a discontinued yarn, which is such a shame because it's a beautiful sort of British woolly wool, and it's so nice and warm. Funfetti by Sylvia Watts Cherry. It fits like a dream, and I can highly recommend Sylvia's patterns if you haven't tried them out. And actually that leads us nicely into the knitting portion of this video, and I didn't mean it to be like this, but just coincidentally worked out that this was a sweater that I picked up because the first project that I worked on throughout September was another test knit for Sylvia. And if you watched my September making plans video, you'll know that I was aiming to try and finish my test knit by the end of September, and that just didn't happen. Lots of things conspired against me, and yeah, I didn't meet the sort of deadline that I set for myself, and I've chatted to Sylvia about it. She's very understanding, but I'm not sure exactly when my sweater is going to be finished, but I'll share what I do have. So I am knitting the Let the Good Times Roll pattern, and you can see the pattern, it's not a secret, you can see the pattern over on Sylvia's Instagram page, and I'll link that below in case you want to check it out. But it's a fabulous intarsia pattern which Sylvia is really famous for. And it has a real sort of nostalgic vibe to me. It's got a roller skate on the front, so it takes me back to sort of growing up in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, I was really happy to jump on board with this test knit. And I've finished the back of my sweater, which has got this beautiful stripe and star motif and some spinning fluff because of course it lives with me and spinning fluff gets everywhere. So yes, I've made the back, as you can see. I'm knitting mine from West Yorkshire Spinners Colour Lab, double knit. The back is finished, but I've hit a stumbling block with the front, and it's nothing to do with the pattern whatsoever. It's definitely user error. I think I might have already mentioned in this video that September is quite a busy month for me. Lots of things were happening sort of personally and work-wise. I've started a new part-time job, and I was sick for a little while. I had like a low-level head cold, which was just making me really tired, along with the sort of mental drain of starting a new job. Yeah, everything just went to two-pot a little bit, and I was trying desperately to hit this sort of deadline that I wanted to meet with this test knit, and I was knitting late at night, and I really shouldn't have been, and I've gone wrong. Which, as I say, no fault of the pattern, but I didn't realise, because of the way the design is at the front, there are sort of lots of elements, a bit like on the back where you could see the stars were sort of placed in different points. There are several elements on the front which are placed in different points, and they start in slightly different areas, and I miscounted, which has put out my knitting quite a bit as I progressed. So I'm at a point where I've got to rip back about 20 rows or so of knitting, which in intarsia it's not complicated, but it can be very easy to accidentally lose track of where you are when you're ripping back. So yeah, I've just taken a few days off of the project, and I'm going to hopefully get back to it later today. I needed to be at home in the daylight to be able to make my alteration. This project is really quite difficult to show because it's mostly stockinette with a little bit of rib at the front, and it's all rolling up and rolling in at the sides, and there are so many yarns attached to this where I'm trying to obviously knit the pattern, and that now I need to rip back. But yeah, it's just very complicated to sort of share a good a good idea of what's going on. But as you can see, I have made some good progress into the front, and I'm just starting up here on the roller skate design. So what I'm actually doing, if you can see down here, is I'm going back in to the point where I've made my mistake, and just as I would if I were putting in an afterthought heel in a sock, I'm going across my knitting and I'm picking up one leg of each stitch in the row that I want to rip back to, and then I know that I can happily sort of rip out my yarns up here without getting out of control. And I can hopefully then pick this back up and get my counting correct. Basically it comes down to counting when I was following the chart. And then hopefully I can get everything back to where it should be and I can continue with this project. So yes, that's where I'm at with the Let the Good Times Roll test knit. And if you watched my September making plans video, that was the project that I picked to work on when the newest cast on prompt came up. The next prompt that I got in the roll the dice game, as we're chatting about that, was to cast on something new. And if you did watch my making plans video, you might know that I was in several minds about what I might want to start, because in reality I didn't really want to start anything but I did have a few options for what I might do. And in the end, I started something completely different that I didn't have in my head, which I guess is the joy of kind of mood knitting. And so I had in my head that I might cast on a new pair of socks. Well, actually, there were two options for socks for me to cast on, but in the end, I went with a hat, because it's been quite some time since I knit a hat for charity, and one of my knitting goals right back at the beginning of the year was to try and knit a hat a month to donate at the end of the year. And yeah, I've let that goal slip a little bit, although at the beginning of the year I made loads of hats, so I'm not going to be short of hats to donate. But I thought it would be fun to pick that challenge, that little self-challenge, back up again. So in September I cast on and knit and cast off a new hat. So here is my hat, and it is the worm hat, and I'm afraid I'm blanking on the designer, but I'll pop that on the screen. It's a free pattern that you can download via Ravelry, and I've knit this hat several times in the past, and it's a really nice sort of easy pattern once you get into the rhythm of it. It's just alternating stripes of knit stitches and purl stitches to create this really sort of squishy fun hat. It has a folded brim, so you cast on, you knit a fair bit in stocking stitch. I think you add a purl row in to sort of denote where the halfway point is, and then you fold it up and pick up stitches and knit them together to create this really nice squishy folded brim. I don't have too much to say about the knitting of it. It's a nice, I did follow the pattern as written, and it makes for, I'm going to put this on and mess everything up, it makes for quite a nice sort of slouchy hat, but it's not too slouchy, because the way the sort of knit and purl ridges work, it sort of all sort of squishes down on itself. So yeah, I think this will be a nice cozy hat for someone, not for me. Because I'm going to be giving this away, although that is going to be hard. And also I managed to progress another one of my little challenges for this year, which is working towards sort of destashing some of the yarns that I own, because I've built up quite a collection over the years, and I'm at a point where I would like to make some space for myself. And so I have a video up on the channel, which you may have watched if you've been here for some time, but I picked out several skeins from my stash that I am challenging myself to try and use within the next year, although at this point it's probably the next 6 months, because time marches on faster than we like to imagine. But if I don't use the yarns in that basket by the end of the allotted 12-month period, I shall be destashing them. And so I had this skein of yarn It's a mystery skein of yarn, which I believe I may have won in a YouTube giveaway. And there was no label with this yarn, so I wasn't sure about the fibre content, which meant that I didn't want to necessarily destash it, list it for rehoming for someone else, because as I say, I wasn't confident that I could accurately give the right sort of fibre information. I believe it might be a mix of merino and tencel, but as I say, I'm not 100% sure. Beautifully dyed in these purples and pinks, and there's some grey in there, and it was really lovely to knit up, and it's got quite a nice sort of soft silky sheen to it. And I think that's 3 quantities of yarn that I've used from my self-destructing yarn basket. So I'm quite pleased with that, but I'm looking over there because I can see the basket just over there, just across from me in my craft room, and there's still quite a lot of lovely yarn in there. So I need to get my thinking cap on to see what's going to be next to be used from that basket. So the next project that I want to talk to you about, I'm going to send you off to have a little conversation with Ange from the future. So if you watch my September making plans, you might remember that the dice prompted me to pick up a shawl project, and I decided to work on one of my 12 cast on projects, which was the Love Your Stash shawl, and I'm super happy to report that I have finished that project. And hopefully before this video goes up, you will have already actually seen a vlog detailing the making of that project. So I won't need to chat to you about it for too long. But as I'm recording this, the shawl is still currently downstairs blocking. I just soaked it today. And so I didn't want to bring it up and share it with you because it's still dripping wet. But also I didn't want to wait to record this video because I've got more time today than I will have later on in the week, so I figured I could just come back and record a short segment to insert. Hey, so this is Angela from the future, who will also be, by the time this goes up, Angela from the past. Timey-wimey stuff, it's weird. But my shawl has finished blocking, so I can share it with you, kind of. It's quite large, so this is the Love Your Stash shawl by Tammy Gore, and it was one of my 12 cast-ons, and hopefully you would have already seen a video detailing the making of this shawl, and if not, then it should be the video directly before this on the YouTube channel. And it is a beautiful shawl with alternating garter and lace panels, although there's only a couple of lace panels in the shawl. So it was mostly just lovely, sort of mindless garter stitch knitting, which was exactly what I needed to be able to take out and about with me last month. So I really enjoyed making this, and I used a set of mini skeins that were a kind gift from Angela, one of our lovely community members, and the minis were from YarnNYarns, although I believe that YarnNYarns have now changed their name, Angela told me. So yeah, it was such a joy to knit on this shawl, and I'm really glad to have it finished. I did make a couple of adjustments. The pattern as written encourages you, as the name suggests, to pick some things from your stash, and there is some guidance as to when to change up your colours in the pattern itself, but I completely ignored the guidance and I just changed in my mini skeins as and when I ran out. I also extended my shawl, so I think the pattern as written originally ended somewhere in this section, and as you can see I've added a good few inches just to use up the entire set of mini skeins that I had, and also to make sure that I didn't cause myself stress at the end by trying to figure out how much yarn I needed to put aside for the I-cord bind off. I added a extra into this, so all of these yarns were in the mini set with the exception of this sort of darker brown that you can see on the cast off edge, and I pulled that out of my leftover basket. I will try and insert a little bit of footage here showing the shawl in its entirety if I can. So hopefully you enjoyed that little chat with future Ange about the Love Your Stash shawl. So the final prompt that I had from the dice for my September making was let YouTube decide. So if you watch that making video, you will have been able to vote on one of two projects, the Varia Mitts and the Driftline shawl. And so yeah, the Varia Mitts won that vote it was quite close to start with, but I think in the end the Varia Mitts had about 10-15 more votes than the Driftline's cowl by the time I got to counting everyone's comments. It was a real joy for me to start working again on another one of the 12 cast on projects from last year, and I've been having so much fun with this one. So the Varia Mitts are a pair of fingerless colourwork mittens, and the pattern is by Erica Hauser, and I made a reasonable amount of progress on the first mitt. So this was a project that I cast on for day 8 of our 12 cast ons last year, and here is my progress so far. So as you can see, the colourwork design, or hopefully you can just about see, the colourwork design is of an owl sitting in a tree, and I'm almost finished with this. I have got to and surpassed the point where I'm starting the increases for the thumb. You might be able to see here the sort of rows are getting longer and longer, but I've only got a couple more rows left now until I put these stitches back onto waste yarn and carry on with the colourwork chart. There's not too many rows left. I think maybe 10 or 15 rows, if that, left of the colourwork chart to finish the design, and then there will be some plain rib at the top. So I'm really close to finishing the first mitt, and I have decided I'm going to be carrying on with this project in October. So although officially when I played my dice rolling game, this project, there wasn't any prompts that would sort of cover this project, I have really been enjoying the sort of rhythm of just adding a row or two of colour work to this project every day, and I'm just going to continue that because realistically I think I can have these finished by the end of October if I do that, and it would be really nice to get another project ticked off of the 12 cast on list. So far here we are in October and I've only finished 3 of my 12 cast on, so it'll be nice if in October I can finish at least one more, make it a 4th finish. So that was everything for the knitting roundup for September. So 2 finished objects and 2 projects that are still works in progress. So not bad really, considering how much other stuff I had going on. I do have some spinning works in progress to share with you as well. I don't have any spinning finished objects. Spinning finished objects. It's a bit of a tongue twister to share with you for September, but I do have 3 spins in progress to share with you, and one of them could, well actually 2 of them could easily have been finished. But if you have followed the channel for a while, you'll know that when it comes to making my yarns, I love to spin the singles, I love spinning the fibre, but then I tend to procrastinate when it comes to actually plying the singles that I spin and making the finished yarn, and that's kind of what happened with 2 of these works in progress. They could easily have been finished objects if I'd have just got my finger out and put in the work. But hopefully that will mean by the time that I am recording my October wrap up, I will have at least 2 finished yarns to share with you. So first off, I have a spindle spinning work in progress to share with you on my support spindles, which probably no surprise if you've been following here for a while, you'll know that for the last couple of years I have developed a real obsession with support spindle spinning, and I was kind of in between spins, or that's not quite true. I am slowly working on my spin to knit project for a litmus cowl, which is a pattern by Jude Harper of Stranded Dye Works, and I've spun all of my contrast colours, and I have also spun up now the candidates that I have for the main colour for that cowl, and I need to do a little bit of swatching before I carry on with that spin. But I can't have my support spindles idle because I just love them so much. So I decided to have a little rummage through my stash, and I picked out a 50-gram braid. I figured I would stick with a smaller quantity of fibre if I could. So I picked out a 50-gram braid from my stash, which was some fibre from Wildcraft UK, a lovely company here in the UK. The name kind of gives it away, doesn't it? And I think I purchased this, well, I don't think, I purchased a spindle from Wildcraft UK, a drop spindle, and I think I purchased the fibre when I purchased the drop spindle, and so it's been sat in my stash for a couple of years now, waiting patiently for its turn, and so now it's spun up and you can see it here on my spindles. So the fibre was a blend of wool and silk. It didn't say what percentage of each fibre, and it didn't say what the wool was. Literally the label just said wool and silk. And the colourway was called Rock Pool. So yeah, I proceeded to spin it up, and I have 6 support spindles housing my 50 grams worth of fibre. I need to wind these off now, and then I can get to plying and have some hopefully lovely finished yarn. Before I put these spindles away entirely, I can share with you a new acquisition. So a lovely friend of mine, Sherry, who has the Twisted Dye Kitchen podcast here on YouTube, reached out to me to say that she was destashing some of her support spindles because she is, I think really in the main she does rug hooking. Things that she makes with the art of rug hooking are just absolutely incredible. And I think a lot of Sherry's time is spent doing that, and she's also a knitter and a spinner, and I think at the moment she's spinning a lot on her wheels, she said. So she wanted to destash some of her spindles because they weren't being used as much as she would like them to be. So she gave me the heads up that she was selling her spindles, or some of her spindle collection, and I was able to nab a couple. Oh, she had some beautiful, beautiful spindles available, and if I'd have had the money, I'd have bought more. But I did manage to pick up this beautiful acorn, which is from the craftsman Alan Berry, and I have been following Alan on Instagram for ages. He makes the most fabulous hand-carved spindles, and if you go on his waiting list, he will carve you like a custom spindle, and that is definitely on my bucket list. But he also occasionally, I don't think he does it so much now, but occasionally in the past he had sort of little sets of different carved spindles that he just had available. And so I was so thrilled to be able to pick up this acorn, this Alan Berry acorn, and it spins like a dream. I picked it up the day that it arrived and started spinning, and it's just, it's so beautiful. I am so grateful to have added this to my fleet of spindles, thanks to my lovely friend Sherry. My next spin, which could easily have been a finished skein of yarn if I had just got round to plying it, I have undertaken on my Ashford e-spinner. And the spin started out, I had intended it to be a spindle spin, and I forgot to bring my little Turkish spindle up with me because I was going to show you that too. But a couple of weeks ago I went to visit my lovely friend Sam, who lives not too far away. It's a little train ride for me to go and visit Sam in Abergavenny, and I wanted to take some spinning with me. Sam's also a spinner and a knitter and a weaver, and I was rummaging around in my fibre stash for something to take with me on the day because I didn't have anything in progress that would have been suitable, and I had some fibre in mind that I really wanted to spin up. It was some fibre that I'd received in a little swap with my lovely friend Jeanette, and I couldn't find that fibre. I have now since found it, of course, but while I was rummaging through my stash boxes, I did find another quantity of fibre that I got in that same trade with Jeanette, so I decided to pull that out and started spinning, and it's a beautiful gradient set from Hilltop Cloud, and the blend was, or is, merino, tussar silk and Shetland. So I pulled this out, and because the gradient pack was made up of several little bumps of fibre, I thought actually that would be perfect for a bit of travel spinning because I didn't have to take like a whole braid with me. And so I took my little Enid Ashcroft spindle out with me, started spinning, and somehow the spin experience just wasn't clicking for me. But I was really enjoying the fibre, so I decided that instead of sort of pushing through and continuing spinning on my spindle with the high chance that it would just sit languishing and get neglected. Instead of carrying on, I pop my fibre onto my e-spinner. And so that's what I did. So there is approximately, not quite, 140 grams of fibre here. And that was what was in the set, but obviously there's a few grams that ended up on my spindle. And you can't really tell because obviously all of the colours are under here, but it's a beautiful gradient from really, really deep, dark, sort of black purple through to this much more sort of plummy, purpley colour, which still has quite a lot of black sort of tones to it, but it's a much, much more bright and vibrant purple on the top. I decided just to spin through the gradient, and my idea is to chain ply this just to keep the colours in the gradient as they were designed. So yeah, I needed to sit and chain ply this. And as you can tell, so far I have not done that, but I will. This was a really interesting blend to spin. It did take me a second to get into the spinning of it. I guess it was a combination of the different sort of staple lengths between the Shetland Merino and silk, that it just took me a while to get into the rhythm, but when I did, it was just a pure joy to spin, and I think it's going to make a really, really pretty finished yarn. So I need to stop procrastinating on this and get it plied up. And actually I do have a good incentive to get this off the bobbin, because at the end of last month, I think, I popped up a little post over on my Patreon page for members of the Patreon community to help me choose my next spin. And so I have a beautiful braid sat waiting for me to spin up, but I want to do a traditional 3-ply with that braid, so I need to free up all of my bobbins. So that's going to be a good incentive to get this off the bobbin and made into a finished skein of yarn. So I think that's everything. I think we are calling it a wrap for this video. I am going to head off and I'm going to be good before I leave this room. I'm going to wind off the singles from my spindles. I'm going to pick up the stitches on the Let the Good Times Roll sweater. And hopefully that will ease me into my evening, and I'll have no excuses not to make some progress on those projects and maybe finish some hand spun yarn. We'll see. Please do let me know in the comments below what you made, what you worked on in September. I would love to hear from you. I love the community that has grown up around this channel, and yeah, it's just always a joy for me to hear about what you are making, as well as me sharing what I have been up to. Thank you as always for being here, for liking the channel, for subscribing, for sharing that you're watching the channel, for all of the support that you give me. If you would like to financially support the channel, help me continue to put aside the time I need to make these videos, then you'll find links to my Ko-fi page below where you could send a one-off donation. And a lot of the money I get from both Ko-fi and from Patreon, which I'll mention in a minute, I put back into the podcast by using it to fund postage and prizes for our make-alongs. You'll find a Patreon page link thing below the video as well, and if you want to become a regular supporter of the channel, you can sign up to the Patreon community, and in return I post extra content over on the Patreon page, extra videos, some written posts as well, and Patreons now also get early access and ad-free access to the videos that go up here on the YouTube channel. So if that's something that you think might be of interest to you, then you can check out all of the details below. Of course, I understand it's not possible for everyone to support in that way, but just by being here, by liking the videos, by subscribing to the channel, you are supporting what I do. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that, because you're the reason I keep coming back. So yeah, I'll be back again soon with some more making content as always. I hope you will join me for the next video, but until we do get to spend time together again, I hope you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. And don't forget to tell me all about what that is below the video. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now. Bye.